Hey everyone, Cloud Architect Pro here from Nimbus Nebula. Today we're diving into a challenge every expanding AWS organization encounters. Imagine the Wild West, dusty saloons, tumbleweeds, and no rules. Now, picture that chaos with your company's AWS accounts. It's a common problem. Companies start with one AWS account, thinking it will be enough. But as the company grows, so do its cloud needs, leading to a sprawling mess of accounts. Multiple teams need their own AWS environments. Developers, data scientists, and marketing, all wanting a slice of the cloud. Without structure, this free-for-all turns chaotic. AWS Control Tower is here to save the day. It provides a centralized management system for your multi-account AWS environment, like a sheriff bringing order to town. With AWS Control Tower, you can set up a secure, compliant, and well-architected multi-account environment with just a few clicks. So then what is AWS Organizations? AWS Organizations is a service that allows you to consolidate multiple AWS accounts into an organization that you centrally manage. This helps you to organize accounts into groups and apply policy-based controls. AWS Control Tower builds on AWS Organizations by providing a straightforward way to set up and govern a multi-account AWS environment. It applies preventive and detective controls, known as guardrails, to ensure your accounts adhere to best practices and prevent drift. AWS Control Tower also helps with central management of billing, access, compliance, and security across your AWS accounts. Setting up AWS Control Tower is straightforward. The first step is to log into the AWS Management Console with your root account credentials. In the search bar, type Control Tower and select it from the drop-down. Once on the AWS Control Tower dashboard, click the Set Up Landing Zone button to start. AWS Control Tower itself is free, but it integrates with other services like AWS Service Catalog, CloudTrail, CloudWatch, and S3, which incur charges based on usage. Keep this in mind as we proceed. Now, choose the AWS home regions you want to use for your landing zone. A best practice is to select at least 2 regions for redundancy. Once picked, the home region is locked in, so choose carefully. For this demonstration, I am selecting only one region, US West Northern California, as my home region. AWS recommends expanding your AWS Control Tower landing zone only to the regions where you plan to run workloads, ensuring efficient use of resources and governance. Region Deny. This feature restricts access to certain regions for security or cost control, but we'll leave it disabled for now. Click Next when you're happy with your choices. Let's configure your organizational units now. AWS Control Tower uses organizational units, OUs, to help you organize and manage AWS accounts in a structured hierarchy. By default, top-level OUs include Security and Sandbox. Foundational OU, for logging, auditing, and management accounts. Additional OU, for production and development workloads. OUs allow logical grouping of accounts, making it easier to apply policies and delegate responsibilities. AWS best practices recommend separating resources by accounts for better governance. You can further customize your OUs to match your organizational needs, organizing by department, project, or team. Finally, create a sandbox OU for development and testing, then click Next to proceed. Next, configure your shared accounts. AWS Control Tower utilizes shared accounts for logging and auditing everything we do. These key shared accounts include Log Archive account and Audit account. The Log Archive account stores a central copy of AWS CloudTrail and AWS config log files for all accounts in the landing zone. The Audit account provides restricted access for security and compliance teams, centralizing logs for cross-account security audits. These accounts are independent of the management account used to launch AWS Control Tower. Alright, let's set up our shared accounts. These are super important. We'll keep the account names as Log, Archive, and Audit, but note that these names can't be changed after the landing zone setup. You can either create a new account or use an existing one as your security tooling account. Make sure to use unique email addresses for each account. In this demo, I'll use logsarchive@nimbusnebula.com for Log Archive, and auditing@nimbusnebula.com for audit. Ensure these email addresses aren't tied to any existing AWS accounts. Before we proceed, let me quickly show you my inboxes for these accounts. I have designated 2 Gmail inboxes for specific purposes. The green labeled inbox, logsarchive@nimbusnebula.com, is for log archive. The purple labeled inbox, auditing@nimbusnebula.com, is for audit. Both inboxes are currently empty. Once we complete the control tower setup, AWS will begin sending emails to these addresses. By the way, I'm using Gmail to manage emails for my domain nimbusnebula.com. If you're curious about that setup, reach out and I'd be glad to walk you through it. Let's continue by clicking Next. Additional configurations. Now, we'll configure a few more settings. First, AWS account access configuration. AWS IAM Identity Center is recommended as a scalable way to manage user access across AWS accounts in your landing zone. If you're using an existing AWS environment with a different solution, you can choose to opt out of this feature. Next, AWS CloudTrail configuration. Enable organization-wide CloudTrail logging to track actions across accounts. Next, set retention periods for logs in Amazon S3 based on your requirements. Now, optionally enable KMS encryption for extra security, but for this demo, we'll leave it disabled. Now, click Next. Review and set up landing zone. We're almost there. Let's review everything. Regions. Make sure your home region and additional regions are correct. OUs and shared accounts. Double check that everything is set up as expected. Guardrails. Ensure that your governance policies are enforced. Once confirmed, check the box to acknowledge the permissions AWS Control Tower will use, and click Set up Landing Zone. The AWS Control Tower setup can take up to an hour, depending on the size of your organization and number of accounts. During this time, new accounts are automatically integrated into your AWS organization, with billing consolidated as well. You can track the setup progress in the AWS Control Tower dashboard. Now's a great time to grab a coffee while everything's being set up. Congratulations! Your AWS Control Tower landing zone is now fully set up. I was lucky. This process only took 30 minutes for me to complete. During the setup process, you will receive several automatically generated emails. Now let's take a look at these emails. The log archive. With the green theme, just received one email from AWS. Now let's take a look at the audit email with the purple theme. There are 2 emails from AWS. These accounts are now ready to proceed with their configurations. As the root user, you have the ability to add these accounts yourself if necessary. Understanding ongoing charges. Now that our control tower is fully set up, there's a crucial point to remember. AWS Control Tower can incur charges even if you're not actively using resources. Here's why. Service dependencies. AWS Control Tower relies on services like AWS Organizations, CloudTrail, AWS Config, and GuardDuty. These run continuously for monitoring, auditing, and log storage, which come with costs. Baseline accounts. The log archive and audit accounts generate ongoing charges from CloudTrail, AWS Config, and S3 for centralized logging. Continuous compliance checks. Governance with guardrails involves AWS Config and AWS Lambda, adding to costs. Resource provisioning. Setting up VPCs, IAM roles, and configurations in each account incurs costs. While individual costs may seem minimal, they can add up over time. So, keep an eye on your billing and cost management tools. Verify overall health and compliance. Navigate to the AWS Control Tower dashboard to verify the overall health of your setup. Ensure there are no compliance issues and review the status of your resources. Confirm that all mandatory and elective guardrails are enabled and functioning as expected. That wraps up part 1 of our AWS Control Tower deep dive. By now, you should have a solid grasp of the foundational setup and initial configurations needed to bring order to your multi-account AWS environment. Stay tuned, because next week we'll dive even deeper into the management and customization of your AWS Control Tower setup. From advanced guardrails to automation best practices, you won't want to miss it. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss part 2. I'm Cloud Architect Pro from Nimbus Nebula, signing off. See you next Thursday.